of how to linearize your data. And I'm going to just go through a little bit on a spreadsheet to give you an idea of how to get started. So let's take a look. So here we have some data, distance against force, and this looks like the independent variable, and this is the recorded numbers. So what we can do very quickly is to select all the numbers, including the title, and graph it. When you click on graph, we generate a graph. It's a line graph. We don't like line graphs in physics. We want to turn it into a scatter plot. And you can see a nice little curve here. So right away, we're thinking parabolas, right? And normally we can just go to customize and series to add a trend line. And when we do that, the default is a linear line. So yes, it is a line of best fit, but it doesn't really fit the data that well. So what we can do is turn that into exponential. Take a look. Well, that doesn't go through all the numbers either. And it's a polynomial, fits. And you can even see, if you go scroll down some more, an equation that fits this line. So I'm hoping most of this is something that you've done in math class. So now we can see that under this scenario, the data gives us some sort of parabolic relationship. So that is, one variable is proportional to the square of another variable. And now based on the lesson that I gave you earlier, if one thing is proportional to another, then when you graph them, you should get a straight line. So let me say it again. So this one variable should be proportional to the square of another variable. And if we plot the one variable that is the square of the other, you should get a straight line. So let's see if we can do that. So I'm going to copy this. So you don't have to do this. You can do it on the same spreadsheet if you want in the exercise. I'm just going to start a new one just to be clear. So I'm going to copy exactly what we had before, except I'm going to square the distance this time. So how do I do that? I'm going to copy the distance, paste it, and we'll let the spreadsheet do the work. So I want distance squared versus force this time. Mindful of my units, the units get squared as well. So now we're going to have a column of distance squared. So how do we do that? Again, just use the spreadsheet equals the square of this number from this box. Hat 2 is a square, enter, and again, we drag this little box, get the X going here, and drag it all the way down. Boom, done. Force, I'm just going to copy and paste over. So what we're doing now is we're going to look at the distance squared versus the force. Remember earlier, we had just the force versus the distance, and it's not squared, just the pattern is squared. So what we're going to do is graph the square of this value versus the force of this the force column, and see if we get a straight line. And if we do, that means they are proportional. Look, it worked. So we can look at, again, customize a trend line, and it's a very nice straight line. And because I selected the column titles, it automatically puts in the axis titles for me. So now we can see clearly that the force and the distance squared is proportional. How do we know that? When we graph the force versus the distance squared, we get a straight line. So this is the introduction of how to linearize some data. You can stop now if you want, but there's one more thing you can do, is we can actually square root one of them, and we should still get a straight line. So let's try that. I'm going to, again, copy the data, and the square of one thing is the same as the square root of the other, right? So if you have y equals x squared, it's the same as root y equals x. So this is what I'm saying. Y equals x squared was earlier, what we had earlier, but if we square root both sides, we could have square root of y equals x. So this is actually what we're going to try. Now, I'm going to, again, copy the distance column, but this time I'm going to square root the force column. So equals the square root of this number. And if we plot that, we should still get a straight line because now we have distance versus the square root instead of the distance squared like we did before. So let's graph it. Oops, distance versus the square root of force. And look, another straight line. So this is this is another check that you can do. So you don't always have to manipulate the x value. You can also manipulate the y value. I prefer this way actually because you can see that y is proportional to x. Anyway, I hope that helps. Let me know if you have any questions. I'll see you soon.